I'm showing you 7 real glitches in the Matrix, from sleep paralysis to terrifying doppelgängers. You'll find out why Pikachu never looked like this, and why people around you act like NPCs. But watch out, the final glitch science can't even explain. Sleep paralysis. It happens in the middle of the night. Your eyes snap open. You see your room, the ceiling, the dim light from the street lamp outside. Everything seems normal, except for one thing. You can't move a hand or a foot. Your entire body is completely immobilized. You try to call for help, but no sound comes out of your throat. And then you feel the presence. Someone is standing at the edge of the bed. This is sleep paralysis. And if you haven't experienced it yet, congratulations. You've avoided one of the worst free demos the human body has to offer. People describe it as being trapped inside your own body. Science says it's just a glitch in the sleep cycle. During the REM phase, your muscles are paralyzed, so you don't start flailing your arms while dreaming. But sometimes the brain wakes up before the body. Consciousness switches on, but the body is still locked. Usually this lasts a few seconds, a minute at most, but for those inside it, it feels like an eternity passes. And here is where it gets particularly weird, because sleep paralysis is not just paralysis. It almost always comes with company. People all over the world, in different cultures and different times, describe the same thing: a dark figure standing nearby and watching them. If it's just a brain glitch, why did millions of people see the exact same thing? There are 2 options. First, our brain is wired so that in this state, it defaults to generating a frightening image. Sort of an evolutionary prank to make an already terrible state even worse. Or second, they have always been there, and sleep paralysis is the only moment when you are actually capable of seeing them.
The Mandela effect. A reality update while you were offline. Let's run a test. Does Pikachu have a black tip on his tail? Think carefully. You've seen Pikachu 1,000 times. On cards, in games, in cartoons. You know exactly what he looks like. So yes or no? If you answered yes, congratulations. You've just encountered the Mandela effect. Pikachu never had a black tip on his tail. Not in the games, not in the anime, nowhere. Yet millions of people swear it was there. All right, next question. Does the Monopoly Man, that rich guy from the board game box, have a monocle? Of course he does. Top hat, tuxedo, mustache, and a monocle over his eye. Except he never had one in any official image. The Mandela effect is a strange phenomenon where a huge number of people share the same memory of something that never actually happened, or at least hasn't happened anymore. The name comes from Nelson Mandela. Millions of people are sure he died in prison in the 80s. They remember watching his funeral on TV, reading newspaper headlines, discussing it in school, but it never happened. He was released, became the president of South Africa, and didn't die until 2013. How is it possible that millions of people remember the same thing if it wasn't real? The official version: human memory is unreliable. A few people remembered it wrong, told others, those people told others, and the false memory spread like a virus. But if so many people are sure of something, and history says the opposite, what if it's not memory that changed, but history itself? What if it's a reality update? Small patches that rewrite the past, but leave behind a system glitch because you simply didn't update in time. Some believe this is proof. We are jumping between parallel realities that are slightly different, almost unnoticeably, and our memory can't sync up fast enough. Others think it's just a poorly maintained simulation. The world gets overwritten, but the developers miss things. In any case, if you notice that something has changed, something that wasn't supposed to change, it means it's already too late.
Missing time, a synchronization error. The clock says 3:02 p.m. You blink and it's already 3:47 p.m. You didn't move, didn't look at your phone, didn't get distracted for a second, but 45 minutes just vanished somewhere. The official term is highway hypnosis, where the brain switches to autopilot and continues driving the car, but memory stops recording. This happens on long, monotonous roads. It seems logical, but what if you aren't driving? Some people encounter this right in their own homes. They're sitting, watching TV, they blink, and it's suddenly night. Someone is washing dishes, gets distracted for a second, and suddenly an hour is just gone. Sometimes this happens right in the middle of a conversation. A person is talking to a friend and suddenly notices the friend looking at them strangely, as if they had just gone silent for 5 minutes. And sometimes it's even scarier, when you get the feeling that something happened, but you aren't supposed to remember it. It's as if someone took and trimmed the runtime, cut out a moment, edited reality and removed fragments you weren't supposed to see, things that were never meant to make it into your memory.
The bystander effect. When NPCs refuse to trigger the next event. You are walking down a busy street. Suddenly, a person falls to the ground unconscious. People start to gather around, a crowd forms, and nobody moves. Everyone just watches. You wait for someone to step in. Maybe a doctor happens to be passing by or just someone kind. But nobody goes. Nobody does anything. This is the bystander effect, a strange glitch where the more people there are around, the less likely it is that someone will intervene. Because everyone thinks someone else has probably already called for help. But because everyone thinks that, nobody does anything. And it gets even weirder. There are documented cases where entire groups of people just stood and watched as something terrible happened and didn't even try to help, even though it would have been incredibly simple. Someone choking in a restaurant, a woman being beaten in broad daylight, a child drowning in a fountain, but no one makes the first move. No one wants to take responsibility. It's like everyone is stuck in standby mode, like they are frozen in an idle animation until the main character shows up to trigger the scene. But if you entertain the thought for even a second that this isn't just psychology, what if some people actually operate like NPCs? What if they only activate when directly interacted with? And if that's true, the next time you're in a crowd, just look around. Is everyone around you really playing the same game as you?
Doppelgängers, NPC cloning bug. Imagine you're walking down the street and suddenly you see yourself. Not a lookalike, not a twin, but you. The same face, the same clothes, the same movements. At first, your brain frantically searches for an explanation. Coincidence? A reflection in a window? A trick of the light? But then this creature looks right at you and you realize it knows. Since ancient times, people have reported meetings with their doubles, and it's almost always a bad omen. One of the most famous cases is Abraham Lincoln. A few days before his assassination, he saw his reflection in a mirror, but there were two reflections, one normal and the second pale, almost ghostly. His wife didn't hesitate to interpret the sign. He would die soon, and as we know, the wait wasn't long. Of course, you could say Lincoln was just overworked, that his brain created a false image, or perhaps it was a system glitch. Maybe reality accidentally rendered two versions of you simultaneously. Maybe you caught a glimpse of yourself from another timeline, or maybe something else is trying to take your place. Whatever it is, if you suddenly see someone who looks exactly like you, turn around and run fast.
Déjà vu. It's like someone hit save and then accidentally reloaded the moment from scratch. You walk into a cafe and hear a tray clattering, the low hum of conversation. The barista shouts an order, a name, and for some reason you already know what it is. A black cat rushes past, and suddenly you are overcome by a sensation that this isn't just familiar. It has happened before. You know exactly what's going to happen next. The man by the window will check his watch. The woman at the counter will drop her keys, and in 10 seconds the door will open and you already know who's going to walk in. Science explains this as a glitch in our perception system. Our brain, getting overloaded, accidentally files the current moment as a memory. This is called dual processing. Information about the event arrives twice with a minimal delay, and the brain perceives the second input as a replay. But if it's just an error, why does it feel so frighteningly accurate? Why does it feel like you've already lived this moment, knew what would happen, and even felt the exact same way? Some are convinced that déjà vu isn't a mistake, but proof that time isn't linear, that we live in a loop or are intersecting with an alternative version of ourselves from another reality. There's even a theory that during déjà vu, we are remembering a past life or the moment of our death in another timeline. And if that's true, how many times have you been here before?
Spontaneous human combustion, one of the most frightening and poorly explained phenomena known to science. People suddenly burst into flames without an obvious ignition source, and the fire destroys almost the entire body, leaving only minimal damage to the surroundings. In 1951, the body of Mary Reeser was found in the U.S. The chair she was sitting on was charred, ash covered the walls, but the rest of the room remained almost untouched. Her skull was shrunk to the size of a baseball, which is impossible in a normal fire. In 1980, in Ireland, the first case officially recognized as spontaneous combustion was recorded. A man named Michael Faherty was found burned to ashes in a chair, but the newspapers and furniture standing nearby remained intact. Scientists propose hypotheses: the wick effect, static electricity, rare chemical reactions, but none of them explain everything fully. Why does the fire destroy the body but spare the surroundings? Why in some cases do legs remain, while in others even teeth turn to ash? Why does it all happen suddenly, without the smell of smoke or signs of struggle? Some consider this a quantum glitch, others an intervention by unknown forces, or even a temporal compression of space. Perhaps we're dealing with a simulation error, a moment when something decides to delete an object from the world in the most dramatic way possible.
Subscribe in the next 3 seconds, and if you want to see something actually insane, click this video right now. Just click it.